From Google, will you please welcome Louis Gray?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's morning where I am. It's also not snowing where I started from yesterday, but now we've got some snow up there. Hopefully we'll all be able to get out of this after this is all done. So I wanted to start this off by talking about the title. What's this all about? Yes, it rhymes. Yes, you should leave remembering what the title is all about. But this is about 3 different stages of measurement as marketers. Just a quick intro on me. You know, everybody could come in here and have a bio, and I guess like the older you are, the more experience you have. It's kind of a linear progression. But I've been doing marketing and related bits in Silicon Valley for about 20 years now. I've been able to see things when we were just beginning out with the .com era, where we focused on e-marketing, where we were doing email sponsorships, web marketing, where we were doing black hat SEO, white hat SEO, all that fun stuff. Then talking about public relations. How do we measure these things? And what I've observed is, over time, people's relationship with marketing changed. What we started with was something simple, which is hearts. What do we feel? How do we have an emotional connection with a brand or a product? And if I say that out loud, you go, of course, I don't love products. What are you talking about? I get the one that's cheapest. But then when you go to a restaurant and they say, is Diet Pepsi okay? And you're like, no. You know, you have this feeling of, you know, I'm going to be aligned with this specific brand. And that's a heart, that's an emotional perspective that you have with a brand. And then we've moved on to something which I call charts. Now, when people think about Google Analytics specifically, and I specifically will not be selling anything in this presentation, most of our products are free anyway. But when you look at analytics, you're talking about charts. And people know you're supposed to go up and to the right and have some kind of thing that you can measure with data points to understand what's going on. But it's not the full story. The third piece is what I call shopping carts. And that gives you that nice rhyme of hearts, charts, and shopping carts. Because shopping carts are what actually drive your business. It's where the actual revenue comes from. So that's a little tiny background. Now we're going to go a little slow at the beginning so people can come on in. But just understand, I have a lot of the same perspectives that you do. I've probably worn the same hats that you have. I've had to call, press people, and get them to write. And I was lucky enough to be a tech reporter or tech blogger for a long time. And I was able to be pitched, which is sort of fun to do both, and try and determine what are those products that I want the rest of the world to know about, because I only have a limited amount of time to write. So I've done both sides. So getting started with this fun little chart, world-class marketers rely on both data and emotion. You can't just do one. But it's more than just measuring the data. Putting a little thin veneer of data over your reports doesn't mean that you're completed and you're done. What it means is that you have some data, right? So what you want to try to do is understand what are the objectives of your business. And we'll talk a lot about that today. For those of you who are new to the world of analytics or new to the world of marketing, you might get introduced to some buzzwords and some keywords that you don't know about, and that's okay. We're going to show you some shortcuts and where you can learn more. For those of you who are analytics wizards and you already know everything there is, I would love to switch places with you and you can give this talk. So for some of that, you might feel like, well, this is a little intro for me. So the objective of this conversation is to understand what our role is as marketing people, what our role is for analytics, and how that fits in your whole business. And so what you should come away with is a few links to look at and some new ideas. That's all we're trying to do. So back in the old days, John Wanamaker, who is one of the first US Postmaster Generals, said, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half. Now, it used to be in marketing, that was what you would do. You would just throw stuff at the wall and hope that it stuck. And you know, what worked? Well, our sales went up. Okay, well, was that attributable to marketing? I don't know. I also hired some inside sales. Was that it? Probably. There's a lot of guesswork. And so what's happened over time, especially with the internet, is that you can measure it and you can get those answers. And it used to be, I remember in the early days of AdWords, you'd be able to put out, you know, the number of dollars that you would spend for a link and an ad, and you'd be able to understand the click-through ratio, how many people came through, and see that they got to your website. And that was usually kind of it. You say you got this many clicks, and then our revenue's on this side. And we've learned as marketers, kind of the bar's higher now, that we need to track it all the way through. And we can't just guess which half and spend it both. I've had experiences where I've walked into the CFO's office and said, I need another $25,000 on this PO. for this campaign. And he looks at me and says, well, why? And I said, well, because it got us $300,000 last year. He said, oh, can I give you 50K? This is what happens when you're able to tell that whole story and bring it back to the business. So this is Steamboat Willie. You say, that's a non sequitur. What are you doing? So Steamboat Willie is a cartoon by Disney, right? Categories, cartoon, Disney. And they'd probably love it if I was throwing this up there because it's their intellectual property, not mine. But this is one of the early bits. This is a cartoon. People were enjoying it. It's one of the first things out there. Keep that in the back of your head. This is kind of where I see hearts. It's just the base level doing the base. All right. What you need instead of just having a little thin veneer of data is more efficient analysis. And the way that you get that level of analysis is by planning up front. And you really do have a number of options for tracking the data. Now, most of you look at this and go, I'm at probably level 3. You know, you could track nothing. Good luck to you, it won't last. You could put tracking on your site, but it's broken. We get that a lot. Usually I do Q&A after it, and it's like, well, I broke my analytics. Okay. Or you have part 3, which is tracking everything, but you really just don't know what's important. You know, it's really simple for marketing managers to track it all and then send like an attached Excel file to their boss and go, here it is. They're going to come back and go, okay, well, what about that data? You know, what is interesting about that data? What does it mean that your page views went up? What does it mean that click-throughs went up? I don't know, right? So you want to come back and say, what is important? You've got to own this. You have to say, I'm going to track it. I'm going to know what's important. I'm going to report on what's important. And I'm going to be able to share it with my peers so that they can make the same kind of decisions that I have. And so the way that you do this is with a measurement plan. Often what happens in the world of marketing is measurement is almost an afterthought. We spend a lot of time with ads agencies doing fun creative. We work a lot on the messaging. We work with our PR agency. We decide who we're going to pitch. We work with product. We understand when is that product actually going to come out. How is it differentiated? Those are all important. But at the end of it, you have to measure the success of your activities. If I go back to my history of marketing, we were often seen as a cost center. And because we were a cost center, we literally reported to the CFO. And you say, that's ridiculous. I don't know, how many people here in marketing who report to the CFO? A couple in the back. It's unusual. And people have figured out that marketing and sales are tied well together. But back in the old days, we would report up to the CFO because that was a cost center. And if you do your job correctly and you measure your reports, whether that's through Salesforce.com or Google Analytics or anything that you use, you can show that marketing is actually a profit center for your company. To stop doing the things that don't work and keep doing at a higher level those things that do. And the way that you decide that is the objectives. If you decide up front this quarter, our role is to bring you X dollars of pipeline, X number of leads, and X number of meetings, those are KPIs that work for your business. You got to make sure you agree. If you come in there, we got 50,000 page views on our website, and so what, right? So you have to determine right up front, who are we going to impress, who's going to have impact on our budget and whether or not we stay hired next year. What are we going to decide as far as how our customers value what we work on, and then get those objectives done. Also, when it comes to measurement, we have to determine how to report it. That example of taking an Excel spreadsheet and attaching it and sending it is all too common. I think most of us have probably done it at least once. Now, obviously, with the web and Google Sheets, et cetera, you have an ability to link it to somebody. Send them a link, and you hope they clicked through, right? Or you have an ongoing spreadsheet that you just update and update and update. And maybe you have a weekly marketing meeting where you get together and talk about that answer. But you have to decide up front what that procedure is going to look like. What kind of data is important? What format? How are people who I'm going to try and impress going to consume this data? When do you want it? And is this going to happen once or every week? One thing that we found, now imagine Google Analytics, big product, small company maybe? Big company, big company. We have noticed that one of the top times that people actually use Google Analytics, the number one day people use Google Analytics is Monday. The second most popular day is Sunday. What? Sunday night, everybody goes, oh crud, weekend's over, I got to do my job. And so Sunday night, everybody, all of us, go in there and crunch our numbers to say how we did the previous week and send those reports. That's real life. We found that very interesting because this is a recurring request. Recurring request, each of us have to report back on a weekly basis or a monthly basis what it is that we're doing. So that's a little bit analytics on analytics. We must go deeper. But it gives us information on what we need to do as a product. So when you're looking at your data measurement plan, you have to decide what are those important questions. And this goes back to your holistic KPIs as a company. Who are the customers? Now, this could be two answers. One is somebody who actually buys your product, and two, your internal customers, your VP of marketing who you have to impress. Your PR agency, if you want to go back to them and say, this piece we did on InfoWorld worked out really well, maybe Business Insider didn't work very well, and you'll be able to track that and understand exactly what kind of calls they made. Where did they come from? How did they convert? And what is a conversion anyway? I'm not up here to tell you what a conversion looks like for you. It could be your job simply is to get them to fill out a registration form. Several years ago, when we were kicking off our company at a startup, we made every single page a conversion page to sign up for our newsletter. We were keeping it mildly stealth, Come in, learn more about the company, sign up for our newsletter. But what happened was we had tens of thousands of people who every single month would get a newsletter with my name on it. It would go out and say, here's what's going on with our company. Here's some updates around our customers. Here's some updates around our partners. And that was our call to action. Later, as we rolled out our new products and had more content, we could take some of those KPIs away and move the registration off to the side, but still give them that option. So you have to determine what that conversion is for you that's important. And so you have multiple ways to drive change through analysis. One thing that's happening with enterprises is you're getting very data-centric. You're talking about your numbers. How many leads did we get? How many meetings did we get? How many click-throughs did we get? We should push to be change-centric. What is it about our company that needs to evolve? What can we do to grow from, say, a small, medium business to a larger business? What are those things that need to change for us? And how can we use data to drive that evolution? One thing that we think about is it used to be that data was a deterministic, different factor about you as a company. It used to be, we analyze everything. Okay, what happens when everybody analyzes everything? What happens to your AdWord budget when every single person is charging against the exact same keywords that you are? I remember that happening when Google pitched us at the old company years ago, and someone said, all you need to do is have keyword and then your product and a link. I raised my hand. I was like, well, what about when everybody does that? What if we're all bidding for the exact same keywords? All that's going to do is raise the price. So what we have to do as marketers is change the game a little bit and have to understand what is it that we can do with data differently that nobody else is doing. Because getting these little small analytics victories isn't going to be enough anymore. Getting just that little bit where you have a key bit of insight. As many of you who are in SEO, we talked about SEO earlier, you're trying all sorts of stuff. And sometimes it works, and then sometimes it doesn't work, and you have to evolve and continually evolve. And so what you need to do to successfully grow your business from hearts to charts to shopping carts is connect it all the way across the enterprise. So the analytics is something you think about at the beginning, execute in the middle, measure at the end, and then go back and do it again. And some of the images are missing, but the words are important. So when you get insights from your data, so it's not just data, but it's an actual clue to you as to what to do next. Next thing you do is share it with everyone. Everyone not being the whole world, but everyone being the people who make those decisions that impact you, impact your business, and impact your customers. This allows you to evolve your website or your mobile app or whatever it is you're measuring to create an engaging experience that drives even more activity. And this is the whole journey. Again, the images in the middle don't matter, but the text does. So through that whole journey, you might find out, wow, this page that drives our product is just not working. We have a bounce rate of X. People are not adding to the cart. This messaging is not working. How many of you do A/B testing right now, where you try different messages? Did you know you can A/B test your website as well through Google Optimize? We have a product that lets you try different layouts and try different messages and continually give you that feedback that's A/B. And so what we're trying to do with analytics is provide you an entire suite of products to solve for all those things that are important to you as marketers. We have a full marketing suite. And that suite, we call it the 360 suite. I'm not in naming, so we get to use this one. When in the campaign process do you think about measurement? Often, about half of people do it when they're developing the strategy. Others get part of the way through and go, oh, shoot, what am I supposed to measure? The time to do that measurement obviously is up front. And I think people know that, but then they get so quick and they're already advancing that they're not talking about it. If you can sit with your PR team when you're working on a public relations strategy and say, how are we going to measure success? That's important. Before you start a sales campaign with inside sales or field sales, you say, how do we measure success? How will you know that this giveaway that we did at a trade show booth, because there are some here, right? How will we know this was the right process? Was it because we scanned X number of leads? What if those leads just wanted my giveaway? Then that's a dead lead and inside sales complains, right? Marketing's that funnel where everyone comes at you and says you did it wrong because everyone thinks they know how to market, right? Everyone thinks marketing's easy. It's not. So looking at analytics, there's really 4 pieces. I don't want to get too deep into some of this, but what we want you to understand is who's the audience? Who came to your website? What are they like? Where are they from? What are their demographics? How did they get to the website? What did they do when they got there? Is a customer who visits 8 of your pages a more valuable visitor than someone who just looked at the marketing landing page and then went away? Is somebody who filled out a shopping cart more important than someone who read 20 pages? I'm not here to tell you. That's up to you, right? So you have to determine what those objectives are that you want to do and then drive through to a conversion. And so one thing you're going to hear a lot with the world of analytics as it changes is we're getting away from visits and hits. You all remember how many hits did we get today? How many page views did we get today? What we need to talk about instead is the number of users who came and the number of sessions. You're going to hear that a lot, users and sessions, as they come and spend time with your product. And as we're all distracted constantly, we have so many websites to visit, so many apps to download, so many things that we can do, we should be able to track those sessions across time. So that if you look at your website today and then 2 weeks later someone comes back and then 3 days later they come back and then they finally convert, that you'll understand that customer journey. And we'll talk a tiny bit about that in a bit. The first thing with analytics is you can't measure over time if you don't have a baseline. And I would suggest probably most of you have some level of analytics right now on your site. If you don't, today's a good day to start. But I assume most people are either running Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics or any of the other companies that are out there doing this and providing you some level of statistics on your website. You'll be able to go in and find out exactly the details about that. What kind of platform are they using? What if, maybe a few years ago it would have been a big problem if your site didn't work on IE6, if you ever had to work with that as a webmaster, and understand what it is you need to do to change your site to work well on a specific browser or platform. You can even identify specifically revenue share. So this is shopping carts. This is a real site. This is our Google merchandise store. So if you ever wanted to look like you work at Google, I don't know why you would, but if you wanted to come in and get shirts with logos, mugs, mouse pads, umbrellas with Google logo on it, people come in all the time and they make a purchase. And you could show like 701K over a certain time period right through analytics. And that's because we've been able to track e-commerce conversions back in analytics. So as you think about your business, if you're running an e-commerce store and you're only tracking the number of visits, the number of page views that came through, you're not doing enough. So we have that option with e-commerce tracking. And specifically, we can look at shopping behavior. This is a very real shopping behavior analysis from within the tool that shows you exactly how many sessions. As you have a session, how many of them had a product view where they were looking at that product and understanding the details about it? How many added it to cart and how many checked out? You'll notice how that waterfall decreasingly gets down. I think every single one of us has added a product on Amazon X number of times and not bought it, right? And so they should have that data. Why did they remove it from cart? And usually, if you're somebody like Amazon, you'll go ahead and put an ad up on the next site that you visit, say, hey, do you want to go back and finish that purchase you were looking at? We've all seen that. How many of you have gotten ads for things that you almost bought and then eventually went back and bought it? And some of us, we joke about it because if you buy a refrigerator, you're probably not in the market for another fridge right away, but they think you are. So when it comes to big items like that, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you're someone who likes to have hobbies and you buy shoes or you buy things regularly, they will come back and you'll get that option. We can talk about product performance. You can work in the e-commerce tab of Google Analytics, understand which products are working the best. You can see in this case, the Nest cameras are being sold quite a bit through the Google Merchandise Store, and you buy those, and those are the ones that are driving the most revenue. So what can you learn from this? If you're someone who's got a bunch of like 1,000 SKUs that you want to work with, you maybe put the Nest a little bit higher, make it easier for people to buy. Is it an impulse buy? Is 300 an impulse buy these days? I don't know. But you basically put those up there and make a decision off of it. And one thing that's also important is attribution. So we talked a little bit about attribution last year. We're talking about more this year. Attribution, for those who are unfamiliar, is be able to specifically derive how much value an activity had. And what I mean by that is, if, for example, you're somebody who subscribes to our newsletter and visited our website, that's one type of person. But if you subscribe to our newsletter, visit our website, and click through an ad, that's a different type of person. And we'll be able to compare the number of people who have those 3 activities versus the 2 and understand how much more likely they are to buy. That's attribution, where we can attribute a percentage of the sale to that third thing which is different. And one thing, if some of these are getting complicated, I would recommend everybody write these down. This is analyticsacademy.withgoogle.com. Everybody should do these. It doesn't mean you have to do all of them, but find out the right things to do. These are free. This will help you walk through our site, understand exactly what goes on, find out all the keywords, and you can take this knowledge, you get a certification, and you can take it to whatever job you have next. So if nothing else, if you ignore the rest of what I say, do this. So going back to attribution, this is where we are now. We're in stage 2. We're in the charts level. And Pinocchio, his nose is growing. But you remember what I said about Steamboat Willie. It was a Disney cartoon, right? Pinocchio, also a Disney cartoon. What happened between stage 1 and 2? First of all, it got color, right? Color's a huge thing. It used to be in Technicolor. Now you have even better animation, more people working on this, but this is the second level. This is kind of stage 2 of your process. And as you can see, in the time between when Steamboat Willie came out and the time when Pinocchio came out, Disney evolved and created a lot more quality. That's where you are now in this process when you go from hearts to charts. So one thing also that's changed a lot is mobile analytics. How many of you are on your phone right now while I'm talking? It's okay, I'm not going to get mad. There's a lot. Now, it used to be, if people were on their phone, you're kind of annoyed. You're like, oh, they're distracted, right? But everybody is constantly connected to their phone. I used to think I was the only person who would browse Twitter while watching Law & Order. It's not the case. We're all doing that. We've all probably at home, we've got our phone on the seat, we've got our laptop on our lap, and we've got the show up here. Unless you're watching Netflix, in which case it's right there. But people are doing multiple things at once. And so mobile is increasingly important. A number of years ago, I was at Google, and we would have our internal company meetings. This isn't like super secret, but They would go up there and they would say, the process that's happening right now is that the number of people who are coming to Google for search from mobile is threatening to pass desktop. And we're looking at it going, wow, that's a big deal. And think about geographies that are not this one. If you think about Indonesia, India, Philippines, it's not just mobile first, it's mobile only. The only way they interact with your brand, if they do, is on the phone. And so it's becoming increasingly important. A couple years later, not only did mobile traffic to Google exceed 50%, but it blew past desktop. Not only did it happen to us, it happened to everyone. So yeah, there are trillions of searches made on Google every single year. And you now have different ways to interact with something like Google, whether it's a Google Home that's inside of your house, whether it's you talking to your phone through the assistant, whether it's you going to your desktop and doing a quick search. But mobile is taking over. And this isn't just happening to us, it's happening to you. And so when you think about measurement, mobile measurement is going to be huge if it's not already for you. You can't just ignore it and say, hey, our website looks beautiful, we did this big redesign. You have to look at the page on mobile. In fact, in the United States, YouTube reaches more 18 to 49-year-olds than any broadcast or cable TV network just on mobile. And this is actually old, so I could probably bring it up, and it's even higher now. If you have kids, I have kids, they watch YouTube all the time. Even when I try to block it, they find a way. It's true. I'm like, why are you watching that? Anyway, but they're on mobile all the time. They're always on YouTube, and they're consuming content. To them, if you told them, we used to watch ABC, CBS, and NBC, and sometimes PBS as a kid. Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you could only watch Sesame Street? I don't even know what that is. So more than half of all web traffic is now coming from smartphones and tablets across the entire world, and is spurring new types of conversions. So that add to cart process that you see on desktop is a little bit different inside of the app. Now you have to talk about cross-device activity. Can you measure a single individual who is looking at your stuff on the phone and then went to their desktop and completed the transaction? Did they actually do the entire thing from within the phone? How will you know if they're inside the actual store and still looking up information? If you ever walk into an Apple store and you compare prices to Amazon when you're in there. So here's some quick things. What are people doing with these phones? Really 4 pieces that are specific. And we call this, the rise of mobile. And you basically have 4 pieces. 1, I want to know. I want to know something. I want to know how much this costs. I want to know what's it made of. I want to go somewhere. I want to do something. I want to buy something. So when you're taking your devices out, that's typically what you're doing. And we talked about people using their mobile phones right now. You want to take a picture. You want to text an update. You want to see where dinner is because this guy up here is really boring, whatever you're doing. It's always something that's going to build on it. And what all of us have to do is understand that we're being constantly distracted. We have this opportunity to try and fight against other activities. Why should your ad even enter into their view if there's an update on Instagram? I'm going to go see Instagram instead. You have to find a way to break through that and measure it correctly. So here's what a typical person's workday looks like. 150 times you're looking at your phones per day. Now I thought about that. Am I ahead of this? Some of you are like, that's low. I see it as like one continual touch through the entire day. It's like when people ask me how many Diet Cokes I drink a day, I go 1 at a time. It's 150 per day, and these are what people are doing. You might wake up in the morning and read Twitter, see what's going on. You might add items to the wish list. Maybe when you're walking to the bus, you'll check the news and see what's happening. You might be listening to a playlist. This is all happening on your mobile device. This probably looks pretty familiar, and we could change all the words, but this is what's actually happening. You might even use your flashlight app at home when you're finishing the day. From start to finish, you are connected to that personal computer that's giving you data, and you're giving it data constantly. So let's think about that. Now that you know this as a marketer, which touch point actually should get credit for the sale? Was it the first click? Was it the last click? We used to have this fight back in the day with our inside sales team. If marketing did an advertisement and somebody saw it, and then they called us, that's an inbound phone call. Those were our favorite. When people made inbound phone calls, we had the best ROI. So we're like, how do we get people to call us more? When inside sales would be like, well, no, I'm the one who sold them. They called me. Well, yeah, but it was our idea. No, we should get credit. So we would always have that push-pull. Well, marketing gets credit, but inside sales gets the handoff. The reality is it should be data-driven. It's that last piece. It's not just the first click. It's not just the last click. It's data-driven. And that's where attribution comes in, where you can explicitly understand, was the first click 20% of the sale, 30%? Was last click 30 or 40%? Now, if this sounds like magic, it's not. This is something where you want to go online and check out the Academy and learn more, or check out our attribution online as well. You have to know the complete journey. We did a survey, I think it was with Forrester. 84% of marketers understand that their data sources are not well integrated. There's probably you're like, well, that's factual, right? People believe that this should be changing, but most people still haven't done it. They haven't found a way for Salesforce to talk to Twitter Analytics, to talk to Google Analytics. They're just all 3 different places. And I'm not saying don't measure those. Everybody who's using social should use the analytics that came in the box, right? You should use Twitter Analytics. You should use Facebook Analytics. You should use LinkedIn. But what you have to do is find a way to get it all together, and so you're measuring the same thing. And don't just look at a single channel. How are we doing on Twitter? No. How are we doing in marketing? How are we doing as a business? And so people agree, those we talk to, that attribution makes sense, but just about half of them aren't using it at all. And probably that's similar for most of you here, where you've heard of attribution or you're hearing about it today, but you're pretty sure that's not exactly what you're working on right now. This is important, so you can go back and say, yes, we do email, but it has 20% impact. Or yes, we do in-person trade show events, and it has this amount of impact. But we have to do all of it. So we have these modern tools that are keys to success. I'm not going to read all the words on the slide, but like I'd said, users and journeys you're going to push through. Understand how the user got there and what they did when they arrived there. Not just that they did get there, but what did they do? How can you get insight out of your data? So it's not just 500 page views, but it's 10 leads came in and spent $5,000, whatever that looks like. And you should have that data when and where you need it. If we're all consuming content on mobile, we should also be able to measure it on our website, on our phones, as well as analyze it. So next phase of analytics. Now, again, I promise I'm not selling anything, but you should know what's going on that we've done recently that's new. One thing we did was language queries in analytics. So most of you are thinking, well, I'm not a PhD in statistics. What are you talking about? You can actually jump in here and ask a natural language query to analytics now. What was my revenue growth of mobile versus desktop? And you should get automated alerts. We now have the option that if I'm looking at my phone, it might tell me, you have a surge in visitors from Canada this month compared to last month. I didn't do anything. It just saw it, and it said, I think this is of your interest. And you can ask these questions and find it out. So you can try this today, not only on our website, but on our mobile apps as well. And now you can say, how many new users did we get from organic search on mobile last week and get an answer right away? That means no more having to create your own reports, no more having to look at the textual data and try and build it in Excel and find something that stood out. We'll find it out for you right away. And basically give you more insight more quickly than ever before. Like I said, you can find this out on mobile. This is one of those that looks like it. You know, if you have an alert that, well, it's just not loading quickly enough in India. Well, what am I supposed to do about that? Well, let's talk to your webmaster. You know, what's happening? Is that a co-location issue? Is there something wrong with the speed of our page? I did a page test speed last night just on my blog. And you'd think, well, your blog loads quick. It's got nothing on it. It doesn't have a bunch of ads. But I was told that it loaded less quickly than half of the websites out there. And I should probably take a look at accelerated mobile pages. If you're not familiar with AMP, this is something that you can do to make sure that your website that already looks good on desktop also looks good on mobile. And you're able to get those insights right away and make a call. That's what they look like. You can get it right now. Let the machines do the work, you get the credit. At Google, we love machines, right? Sometimes the machines just work all the time, and we don't have to work all the time, but let them do it. So one other thing I want to talk about. I mentioned that the Google Analytics Suite has a bunch of products. Analytics is the one we talk about the most, but the one that we also are really getting into is Data Studio. The Data Studio product works the same way you do. It helps you collect data, prepare it, analyze it, report it, and share. Let's go back to the you or the me who's taking these Excel reports and attaching them to email to the boss, or having a PowerPoint that we all sit around when it's our weekly marketing meeting and say, here's how we're doing. What if you could create a report that automatically updated itself, that you could hand off to somebody and they could change the queries? So they could change the times in which the report was covered, if they could change the type of pages that they were being measured. And what if that URL stayed the same forever? That's where Data Studio comes in. We have a lot of data that's coming to us, and I talked about this from Salesforce.com, Twitter, Facebook, Google. You have a lot of it, some of which you own that's yours. It's on your own domain. And others you have to pull from third parties and hope you get good data. So we want to take all of this in from multiple data sources and give you a single place to get that answer, to let you have smart integrations with those pieces and share it across everybody. So this is how it works. Connects all your data, helps you visualize it in smart reports, and lets you share it outwards. So what does it look like? It looks like this. Now, one of the best things I get in my job is I get to update our social channels. So when you see something on Twitter at Google Analytics or Facebook or LinkedIn, it might have been me who pressed the button, or it was one of my teammates. And so I'm on Twitter one day looking at the Google Analytics mentions, and this woman says, I love Data Studio. I can make pink reports. I've never been able to do this. The whole thing was pink. We're talking neon pink. And the data was still amazing, right? We got in there and we got to see the graphs and the charts and the cuts, and she was just stoked that she could make it look like whatever she wanted. We've seen other people. I think there's one company called Datasaurus. They call it Datasaurus Rex. And they literally have like a dinosaur behind their report. But imagine you could kind of just do whatever you want. Here's a good sample channel report from YouTube. So if you think about YouTube and you think about those KPIs on YouTube, it's not just how many views did you get, but how long did they watch? How many new subscribers did I get? Is that going up or down over time? These are things that you'd like to know. You can just plug them into Data Studio and it'll continually update. And you can go up to that top right, if you look at the top right where it has the date, and you can change it and say, what did it look like last week? What did it look like 30 days ago? And when you hand it off to your boss, they can do the same type of crunching. So we introduced this product about a year plus ago. It's got a lot of traction. You can basically take a look and see, access the data, explore it, and share that story down to everybody else. And people can increase their productivity. Instead of having to do this each time, you remember those people who worked on it on Sunday night and always had that type of effort every single time? Now you don't have to report every time. Or If you're going to save a step, you go in, you click it once, and then you copy it, and you've done it in 2 minutes instead of 20. Real simple. So this is also a cartoon from Disney. This is Coco. Now you might say, oh, this is Pixar. Yeah, but Pixar and Disney are the same now. So think about how we've grown from Steamboat Willie, black and white, little hitchy-jerky, to color with Pinocchio, to full computer-generated visualizations. And I understand the work that was put in each of these lights was tremendous. Terabytes and terabytes of data went into creating this scene. If you as a marketer can go from Steamboat Willie to Coco, don't you need a promotion and a raise? That's Hearts Chart shopping carts. When you connect those three, and I understand, thank you to Disney for letting us use some of their stills, but that's the kind of progression that you get as an individual in your career once you use the data in a smart way. So when it comes to analytics, when it comes to measurement, you want to know the facts and figures that make sense for your business. Not what I tell you to do, but what you understand in agreement with the people who make those kinds of decisions. That you understand with your PR agency and your ad agency and your comms people. What are the things that make sense? Measure it all, but report the important pieces and use the business objectives that show real revenue. So that's it for now. I'm not here to push them, but the tools are there. Analytics, Data Studio, Optimize will help you do A/B testing on your site. Consumer surveys is something we talk about a lot. Some of you might have gotten a prompt if you use surveys. When did you visit this place last? Did you use a debit card? We can have also, if those of you look at different newspapers across the web, such as the Chicago Tribune, when you go there, sometimes instead of having to click through ads or pay a subscriber fee, they'll say, can you answer a question about your interest in purchasing a car before reading the rest of the article? That's Google Surveys in action. We wanted to be able to provide another new revenue stream to journalists who are having a hard time right now. And so what we use is surveys for you to do that. And so this is a good way for you to just install it on your phone and make a few pennies a week so you can buy more Pokemon cards or something. And then so learn from the Analytics Academy and follow us on social for daily tips. And that's all I have for now, unless there's questions.
Great job, Lewis. Thank you very much. I think we probably have time for just a couple of quick questions before we go into the break. Anybody got anything burning that they have to have answered right now?
I want to know how that guy's LinkedIn ended up on my slide, but that's a different issue.
Aha. There's a little bit of identity theft going on here.
I like it. Good for Christopher.
All right, let's hear it one more time for Lewis. Great job there. Thank you. A couple of quick things before you head out, guys. Two things that are really important because they're about me. I'll be here tomorrow doing a session in the morning talking about Google marketing in the age of assistants. I'd like to come along to that. And Lewis and I will be on a keynote panel talking about the future of marketing tomorrow afternoon. All right, that's it. We can take a short break.